Stoken.
Hey there. How are you?
Oh.
Monday.
Happy Monday.
I'm sitting here like dancing and like, happy Monday. Everybody heard me clearly.
Hey, Yvonne.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. Hey, I'll have the replay from Friday up on YouTube tonight so you can see the answer to your question.
Perfect. I was really bad. Asked a question and didn't even show up for the party.
And
So
we played Quiplash again too. You missed a
Oh
good
man, that's bad. I'm bummed.
We've decided that's going to be our Friday jam. We're
That
gonna.
sounds cool.
Hey, Skylar. Jenny.
Hello.
Awesome. Good to see everybody. Hey, Leha.
Hey.
So I have to let y'all know we won't see Stacy for probably a week or more. She actually had a death in the family. Her mother-in-law passed away over the weekend.
Oh, that's too bad.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
In Missouri, so it makes it a
make some
little
more. That's fine.
extra tricky. So
If you want to make more, you can.
Right on.
Everybody have a good weekend.
Yeah, largely. I got
lots of yard work, which was good.
I got hit by the anxieties. I struggle with that in general, and it hit me this weekend. And I've slept about 5 hours since Friday, so pretty sleepy.
How are you awake?
Yeah, I was gonna take a nap this afternoon. That didn't happen.
Maybe you'll find yourself being extra creative because you're sleep deprived.
Just start hallucinating things and
Right, upside to everything. Right.
You should write music right now.
Well, I do have plans for that. I do have plans for that, and I've been on a gear binge lately. So one of my buddies and I are working on some music projects, and I have gear envy of him. So, but he's got more disposable income for gear than I do. So he buys like the really fancy thing, and then I'll buy the light version or the mini version of that thing. So at least I can work on the same platform. Yeah. So that's been kind of fun. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Hey, I wanted to toss out a question. And then actually Jenny sent one in that we want to talk about as well. I was reading some articles over the weekend and I was thinking about conflict, especially conflict in this paradigm. And I was wondering if, as things start to slip into a groove, even if it's not the groove, it's a groove, have any of you had to deal with any performance issues or conflict issues where people just aren't getting along or they're stepping on each other's toes? And if so, how are you handling them? Are you handling them kind of like you always did, or are you doing something different? Are you treating it more with kid gloves or with the big hammer? I'm just kind of curious as to what's going on. I assume Laurel's treating it with the hammer because she don't mess around.
I was going to say I just send them a ticking time bomb in a box to their home. But I have not had any specific issues.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering because it seems like most people are on their best behavior, but I'm wondering just what the timeline is on that. Right, we're into week 7, and it's hard even when you're stressed out and anxious to keep that up over such a long period of time. You know, if I worked with Laurel and I didn't like her 7 weeks ago, I still don't like her. and that's gonna. Go ahead.
We had just finished our annual performance appraisals right before COVID. I mean, people were finalizing conversations at the end of February, and for certain circumstances, we had some employees that were struggling with their performance, as comes out generally during a performance appraisal. One in particular, we waited for a little while, but we ended up putting her on a professional improvement plan. Actually, it got rolled out on Friday and she quit this morning. So it's kind of solved that issue.
Can I just reflect on all of the smiles that I saw on all the HR people's faces when they said she was put on a PIP and she quit this morning? Everybody goes, yes.
Yeah.
Kind of avoided, although she then ghosted us. She put 2 weeks in it and then didn't come to any check-in today or anything. And so that'll be curious to see what happens with that tomorrow. We'll give her to tomorrow to kind of show up. But, and then we did have one gal who, again, has been struggling with her performance for some time. And instead of doing a PIP, because she's a single mom of 5 kids, and, you know, it just felt unfair to put her on a PIP right now. It just didn't seem so. We did like a PIP light, if you will, and laid out some, you know, things that expectations while working at home that were reasonable, and worked with her to establish those. And we'll probably still have to do a PIP when things return to normal, whatever that looks like. We're not ready to do it now, but so that's what we chose to do with her, something a little bit more loving given her situation.
And that's one of the reasons I asked the question, Laura, because I was curious about that, because we talked about, you know, a few, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, however long it was, just around expectations around work from home, and especially for those folks who are struggling managing home and work stuff, you know, folks with small children or single parents, you know, at what point does the performance, the work performance, get addressed as work performance, right? Is do you do the loving approach for a period of time? And, you know, if we end up working from home for, you know, 6 more weeks or however long, are you able to maintain that light approach? So thank you for sharing that. Yvonne, have you guys had anything where you've had to manage?
Yeah, it was pretty much a carryover from concerns that were happening while we were in the office, and I think it's sort of business as usual. And in these circumstances, it wasn't. It didn't have to do with a person inability to work or anything like that. It was really how honestly they talk to people. And so it was important to have expectation conversations and to be very firm about that, because no matter where you are, we expect you to be professional. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Yvonne. How about you, Jenny? Anything you're dealing with?
We had one person we put on a plan just about 2 weeks ago, but the behavior started prior to us going remote, and he's a single guy with no kids. It's a productivity issue, just not taking his metrics seriously, his utilization. He's in our client services group, so that's who goes out and implements our software, and he just wasn't being productive. He did have a change in management. That was part of it. But he's turned around nicely. So that's our only one thus far. Now, if we were to have someone that is home with kids, we would have to do kind of like Laura did unless it's blatant not doing their job. We're really trying to be understanding, at least until we can get back in the office. But I mean, there could be a circumstance that you just don't know, right? Let's just put your fingers across that people just keep it together. But we have not had anyone, be in a serious position that we had to do anything like that yet. So we're grateful for that. But that doesn't mean it won't happen.
Yeah. And again, I just wanted to plant the seed because I've been around people long enough to know at some point in time, their true selves will come out.
Yeah,
It'll
for
happen.
sure.
Now, we did fire somebody a week or so ago, but it was a salesperson. So it's been a
Oh.
remote issue all along.
Yeah.
So
And sales is pretty cut and dried, right? Irrespective. But would you make a consolation for somebody in a single parent situation who isn't able to do things as productively as they were when they had childcare?
I actually do have empathy. It's not much, and I have to go to the closet and find it. But I keep it on the shelf. But yeah, I would. Now, this guy that we fired was handling Chicago, and we sent his last check, to get there the day of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me a couple hours later. He said, "Well, I missed the FedEx guy. I called my old building, but I moved and didn't tell you guys yet. And so I need the check resent to my current address." I said, "Okay." He moved to Los Angeles. No wonder he wasn't selling worth crap in Chicago.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
Well, that's important information. Like, seriously.
Like, oops.
Holy cow.
It made my whole week.
Another job.
What?
No,
Amazing.
Wow. That's the story of the week, Laurel. That's
pretty
wow. Yeah, hey,
so made my week.
I forgot to mention to you guys that I moved
Yeah.
2,000 miles away. That's awesome.
Wow.
How long
what are
ago?
What are you guys doing? Have you had to deal with this?
So no, at least, in my groups, people have adapted really well to remote work. I know some of our managers struggle with the non-exempt population, just how much extra hands-on time it takes to communicate with them and keep them together. But I'm struggling with some managers who have employees that were on plans. I've got two of them. One is a non-exempt billing specialist, and one is a manager that were on plans prior to our, mandatory stay-home orders. What we decided initially is the first 30 days is that we didn't have enough information to, draw a conclusion on the plan. It really wasn't the right circumstances. They didn't have all the time, experience to be able to prove to be successful or not on the plan. So we extended both of the plans. So the end of the month, we're going to be at about 60 days on both. And have a pretty tough decision. So it's a struggle because I think both of them, we've got enough evidence, documentation to support a termination decision. But for different reasons, the managers are like, no, I just really can't do it right now.
Yeah.
Mostly because of business continuity of how hard it would be to replace, to recruit, start and onboard someone. And then also kind of medical redundancy, I'll call it. Like in the accounting manager, it's more important that we have someone doing some body of work because the next person who is kind of back up to that job, she had a liver transplant last year. So like she can't come into the office probably for months. Like, so we are in a place where like, we really should get rid of that person and find a backfill. But the managers, I think, are going to err on the side of, obviously human compassion. We don't like to lay people off or, terminate people for cause during this circumstance. But they're going to, I think, put us in a little harder position to terminate at a later point, because if we either extend the plans or say that this performance is acceptable, what am I going to do later? Put them on another plan or like go back and say, well, it was okay for then, but it's not okay for now. So I would love any recommendations you guys, might have as we think through it, because I'm going to push these managers pretty hard to make some business decisions. And I just not sure how it's going to play out.
All right, crew, help Paula out.
One question I would have for your managers is, essentially, you're sacrificing the morale of the rest of your staff for one person's bad behavior because you're in a desperate situation. Is it really worth it? Because at the end of the day, you may be dragging everyone else down by keeping that individual or not disciplining them to the point where they may feel like, oh, you can get away with anything here. you know, and it's not worth my time. So you may actually lose the people you want to keep.
Unfortunately, one of the two PIPs is someone that's been with us for 10 years, and this bad behavior is not new. She just happens to have a new manager who won't tolerate it. There will be people in the organization who will be surprised if we ever fire her. And unfortunately, the accounting manager is brand new. He's less than 5 months, and I think people recognize he's in over his head. So again, I think either way, people are going to be shocked if we take that action during, you know, working from home. And I think that each of the leaders of those groups would say, I'm willing to deal with those consequences because I need to move on from this person on my team.
Do you normally use severance documents and other?
Yeah, we've tried to get away from that if it's a clear performance issue where they're clearly not performing. We've got the documentation trail and we think that the risk is low. We really make sure, again, if we're going to backfill a position, that we don't offer severance. I've been asking around a couple of my other business partner colleagues here to say, you know, in the last 1 to 2 months, you know, have there been other circumstances where we've made exceptions to that? Because on a case-by-case basis, we sometimes do. And maybe it's not severance, or maybe it's, you know, 2 weeks pay in lieu of, you know, a transition. So we might do something like that. But again, obviously on a signed release.
Right. And if you pay them and get a consideration document, then you can not get sued.
One person I think would go quietly. The other person's totally in a sue our butt. So
Right.
Yeah.
Those are some considerations too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. So we have an interesting situation where we're actually, you know, in our consulting hat, we can't necessarily tell her exactly what to do, but her situation is somebody who's been on a PIP before and sort of successfully met the expectations and so was taken off the PIP. And what we're coming to find out is that she really just got tired of managing the PIP and just sort of went, all right, good enough, right? And the same, right, it's the same problems. And this is a person who is a delightful person who just really can't do the job right? Can't do the job that they need to be doing. And because we have been super sensitive to the whole circumstances of COVID and everything, she, rather than holding this person accountable again, is leaning towards this concept of demotion. Like, let's put him under the manager that used to report to him and shrink his job down enough to make him successful, right? And we're like, no, that's...
We did that first with the accounting manager.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's so many layers of why that's a problem, right? And so really trying to work through what's the compassion part of that decision and what's the business part of that decision, and how do you put those things together? Because, you know, and I tell people this all the time, I said, you can't shrink the expectations down to be so small that now they're successful and then you keep them forever. And the impact on the rest of the team and, right, that whole deal. But the whole demotion to report to the person that you used to manage, and, right? And so, but there's so much emotion behind these decisions, right?
Yeah.
So,
and how many of us have been thanked months or years later by somebody fired because they knew that they were not being successful? Sometimes it doesn't feel compassionate in the moment, but it is the right thing to do, because it is not compassionate to say, guess what? You're now reporting to this person who you used to manage.
Right. And then this person is like, oh, thanks for the giant burden.
Right.
Yeah. we used to call that the pass this trash strategy.
Right. And like, talk about punish the performer.
Yeah.
Like, why would we want to do that on purpose? This is not something that we have to do. So, and I also keep questioning, like, what's the urgency in this situation? Why do you need to pull the trigger right now? Why can we not put a pin in this, right? There's nothing so much at stake that is going to tank that a little bit of time is not going to work out. So to be continued in terms of what happens here, but I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah. Hey, Laura, what were you going to say?
I was just thinking, I was wondering if Paula could lean on like a temp agency or something to fill that immediate need and then proceed with your, terminations, or extending it a 30-day and having that be a final just to see if, the climate changes.
Yes, I think we could consider both those options. I mean, we tried to express to our leadership team that, our recruiting engine is full force. And yes, you might have some people sitting on the sidelines because they don't want to make a change right now, but, that we would be all after the replacement strategy. I do think that's probably where these are going to land, is maybe another 30 days, because my company just extended our stay home plans until June 1st. So at least, it might be consistent with around that same time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So again, 90 days on a plan, it's much longer than I would prefer.
Yeah,
and I'm
for
sorry,
sure.
managers, you're going to have to stay on these people, and keep the documentation trail and, be firm. But I think that's probably where it'll land, just to balance business needs, compassion, timing, backfill. So.
And then you just hope that they don't come up with a, ADA accommodation request or something.
Some of the reason we can't say no later. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Thank you for the thoughts. And
Yeah.
recommendations. Appreciate it.
Let's go to Jenny's question. Jenny's got a complicated one here. Jenny, you want to talk about this one?
I can find my mute button, yes. This individual has been a lot of conversation since we've hired him on. We were very accommodating to him shortly after he hired because he had some sort of medical episode that kept him from being able to come to work. And then we accommodated him by being able to work from home because he had not qualified for FMLA at that point. Some point after that, I don't even remember how long. It was like 3 or 4 months into him working from home. It became apparent that he was just unable to do so in an effective manner. So we, and he, doesn't have any FMLA at that point. So we were like, you need to come into the office. We had him on a performance plan at that point. He started coming in. Then he hit to where he was able to use FMLA, and miraculously he's sick again. So he exhausted, he kind of went intermittently for a while, but because he couldn't work from home. So he would, when he had a bad day, he would take his FMLA. And he eventually exhausted all of that.
Wow.
He was on a block leave at the end of that. And then we gave him a 3-month ADA accommodation for the medical issue. He was on short-term disability for quite some time, going through multiple rounds of tests, and they couldn't quite narrow down what was wrong with him. They ruled out his heart, they ruled out some sort of esophagus problem and a neurological problem and all these different things. Currently, shortly, I'm going to say like February, maybe end of January, we stopped his ADA accommodation. His short-term disability was declined because it came about that his only accommodation that he needed was a ride to work. How long do you let it go? I'm sorry?
Do you allow for unpaid leave of absence?
We could do another ADA type accommodation, which, it is what it is, and give him the time to do it. It's just, I feel like he's not worked more than he's ever worked, and it kind of stinks. But I don't know what your hands are kind of tied at some point. I can't let him go, which I'm not wanting to do at this point either. But does anyone else have suggestions, thoughts, creativity?
I guess a question I have is, did he exhaust all of the situations under the COVID FFCRA?
Yeah.
Already? So he's taken care of somebody else who had it, and that was 2 weeks. He had it, that was 2 weeks. I guess he's exhausted all of that, right?
Yes. Yeah. He exhausted all of that.
I guess yeah, it's almost like if you're sick, it's unpaid, because if you're truly sick, what can you do, right?
Right, you can't work.
Or if you're not doing your, if not, or it comes down to, can you do your job, yes or no? And if you can't do the job, is it a performance issue? Yeah, that's,
What's your,
I'm sorry that you're in that circumstance.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
what's your work from home strategy? Are you work from home through May, or have you set a date, or?
Currently, we're working from home until May 8th. We'll cross that bridge as the state of Nebraska gives out more guidance on what that needs to be. When we do go back, we won't all go back. And honestly, he's at risk and he should just stay home. I mean, I just don't feel like clearly he doesn't go anywhere and he still got it. So, I mean, he needs to stay home. My recommendation for him is, if he's able to work and he is doing a good job, we would continue forward with that. He's starting to feel better, so I'm hoping this question is at the end of the battle that we're facing. But my concern is, and not to say that he was making anything up, but my concern is, when do we set that precedent again that he can just take all this unpaid time and not work? I just don't want to go down that path again, because it took us months to get him back. And like, strong arms are the wrong word, but like, look, you're either going to be fired or you need to come back to work. Like, that is just it. Yeah. And then all this happened, and I feel like we're down that path again. But he can't control that he was sick either. So, I mean, it is what it is. But.
Well, I think it comes down to, as far as being paid or not being paid, he's obviously exhausted his paid with taking time off. So whether it's FMLA or vacation time or short-term disability, which didn't apply. And then I think you need to look at, if you're able to get back into the office, is he able to also go back to the office? And if he is, but he can't drive, then are there any disability transportation services there? Because that could be an option. Because those, I don't know how rural it is, and I don't know the circumstances there. So, I mean, that's an accommodation that I think could be made. And then unpaid, I would set time limits on it for sure.
Yeah.
What's the impact of the others in his unit? I mean, is it causing problems globally?
If he's unable to work for a long period of time, it would hurt right now, because we've lost a few people due to movement within the company and in the organization. And he was able to close those lower end tickets. So the individuals that can close those higher level tickets were able to focus on those. I would say right now it hurts more than it would have hurt 3 months ago when we were fully staffed. And it's hard to hire and ramp someone up remotely into this position, which we're still trying to do. But that's part of the reason that we, at the end, we could show that it was impacting the department and that we had given him his accommodation and we had done everything.
Is that, if it does come to termination, it's looking at, is there redundancy in his position? Is there, like, to Laura's question of what's the impact? If there are 4 people that hold the same role and they can swing it while he's out, that's different than he's the only one that does the thing.
Right. I mean, we've got like 15 people in that department, but there's different tiers, and it just depends. I mean, it all depends on the workflow from the customers. Yeah. And with COVID hitting, we were really quiet there for a little bit, but it just hit the ramps about 2 weeks ago, and it has just been crazy in our support department, dealing with different customers with different things. Our industry is like a late hitting industry when it comes to these types of financial changes in the market. So we'll be probably hit maybe early next year, middle next year. I mean, because our product, people aren't signing a lot of contracts right now for new product and whatnot. But so our origination side isn't working very much, but we still have the people that are using it, and people still are making payments. Yeah. And so things are still happening. It's going to be the effects of people not buying right now and renting right now that are going to hit us later. So our customers are still, really, really busy, and our trucking people are just killing it right now. So what we've lost, we've picked up. And so our support group is buried. And they're remote and they're all losing their mind.
Go, guys.
Hi, Leah.
Hopefully figure it out, Jenny.
I mean, I'm hoping that he's feeling better now, because there for a while it was just every day was a new thing, but now it's, hey, I'm feeling better today and my son's feeling better and all of that. So it's been positive the last 48 hours of work, but we'll see.
So Laura wins the weirdest story award of today. You win the saddest story award, Jenny. That's a tough one, man. I mean, just so many variables in that equation. And if he's a good person and you like him, right, that's even harder.
Yeah, and his manager, he's a younger kid, but he's super, super nice kid. He's like, I feel like I'm talking to my grandpa and I'm kicking him in the nuts. Because I just can't be mad at him and I can't tell him that. He goes, every time I go to write up the document or whatever, I'm like, I just feel like a jerk. And it's hard.
Jenny, just as a brainstorm, just something I don't even know if this is possible, but as like a bridge gap, would there be a way to pay him part-time and he works part-time versus expecting him to ramp all the way up? I don't know, just a brainstorm idea. I don't even know if that would work.
Yeah, I mean, so far we've told him we will pay him any hours that he works.
Okay.
And they don't have to be 8 to 5.
Okay.
While we do get calls, we also get emails from our customers. So tickets can be managed offline, like at night or on the weekends. And if he felt up to it, we would work with him.
He's not exempt, I'm assuming, Jenny.
Right, he's hourly.
Okay.
So and he tracks his hours. So anytime that he can put towards working, we will take that. And partially, I don't want him going paid either, because he's doing that a lot and he doesn't have a lot of money, and medical insurance is, paying for that stuff's hard, and I feel bad for him. I don't want to fire him, but at the same time, I don't want to deal with it anymore. I'm in that.
Well, he seems to.
Can you get my shirt on the screen?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Laurel, you come out of left field with a zinger every time. Who even knew? It is. Well, Jenny, we'll continue to noodle on it, and if anybody comes up with anything or has any ideas, please send them to Jenny. Jenny, why don't you throw your email address in the chat for folks, so they can grab that real quick. Hey guys, I have a request come in. You've seen Richard. He's from Cap Logistics. He's been here a few times. I worked with Richard in the past. He's looking for a consultant to do a sales comp project. So let me just give you the specifics. And if you know anybody that's in that space, I know a few people, but I don't know anybody that's looking for work right now. It's a sales comp project. It's about 70 people, 2 job descriptions. So it's not a super complicated comp project. They've got outside sales folks and then what they call ops specialists, which are really inside sales folks or CSR type folks. They're trying to figure out how to build a competitive, more leveraged sales plan. Right now, their sales plan is 80 to 90% base, and the delta on upside as a bonus on company performance. He's looking to move towards a more leveraged plan. But he wants, industry data and comp survey participation and, yada, yada, all the 9 yards. He's got a couple of HR people that can help out. So if you know anybody that's in the comp space, that's either, in a small company or out there on their own looking for a gig, it looks like a pretty meaty gig. It's probably, 3 weeks worth of work. It's pretty self-contained. Job descriptions exist. And it's Utah, Colorado, and Houston, and then their outliers are outside sales folks that work remote in California. So just throwing it out there. If you know anybody.
What industry?
Shipping.
So we've been working with HRQ in local to Denver Metro.
Yeah.
We only have 2 sales employees, and we're using Radford data, and we've kind of cobbled things together for just that small group. But I believe HRQ, whether it's one of their people or they consult with somebody that specializes in sales, deeper dive, I can find out who that person is, because that might be.
Yeah, let me know, because I could call Molly too. I was, my, selfish heart was like, if there's anybody that out there on their own, they're looking for gigs right now, I would love to throw somebody a gig. And I know a few comp people, but they work in small shops, and I don't know if that's the right thing. So I thought I would toss it out there to you guys and see if you knew anybody that was out there on their own, that could use some work, because I know we're all looking for work right now. I was wondering if Levy does comp. I was hoping she was going to be here today. I don't know what her comp experience is, but I'll reach out to her and see if that's a thing she wants to do. But just think about it and let me know if you think of anybody. All right, let's get to the funny stuff, because that's what we're here for. Today's funny stuff. Ready? Number one. Well, I know one piece of medical advice I won't be following in these times, and that's the American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines on screen time. The younger your kids are, the funnier that one is. I haven't looked at my kids' screen time in 3 years. This one I love. This is for my New York people. Experts recommend keeping your daily rituals even while working from home.
Eric, have you seen the people on the treadmill tend to travel with their cases? They're either going along the travelator or they're using the treadmill to deliver it like it's coming out from the carousel. So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I love it. I love this dude just riding the subway in his tub. I washed my hands so much due to COVID-19, my exam notes from 1995 resurfaced.
We saw that one.
Oh my.
And my favorite of the day was Quentin Tarantino, Tintin Quarantino.
Oh my gosh.
And just keeping up with Morag's challenge, the cocktails. Today's cocktail, you guys ready?
Yep.
All right. It's called the George's Open. 4 ounces of tequila from all the bottles you thought were empty. No tip. Check the recycling. 1 can of Mountain Dew.
Do.
Vomit. That is.
That looks like somebody who needs to hydrate more.
So I found a website for cheap quarantine cocktails, and the tequila Mountain Dew was a thing. But up to Morag's challenge, I named it the George's Open because Mountain Dew.
To be clear, I would drink that if I was served it.
Thanks, Ruby.
To be clear,
Out of a day.
to be clear, I've been on the road in bars with Ruby where I could order that for her and she would go, yes.
Whatever.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. As always, you guys are amazing. Yeah, Morag runs a similar group to the bartender called Castaway, and it's for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, small business owners navigating this time. And we were on that call today, and she clued them into our potential Mexico retreat.
Oh my.
So I want you guys to know that we're not messing around with this. This is a thing. It may be
go here.
Yeah.
Mexico.
It may be next summer, but we're going and everyone's getting SHRM credits. Yeah, that's happening. So just go ahead and put that in the back of your mind as you're planning. Thanks again, as always, everybody. You're my light. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays are my days.
Hey guys.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
See you on Wednesday.